Hey Kyle, how are you today?
I'm wonderful. How about yourself?
Doing well in this home virtual event world. I hear vaccines coming. I can't wait
We'll see.
one day. So I want to kind of kick off, and it's great to do this panel or this interview because I've been following Sales Law for so long, and I kind of know all the high level. I've written about the high level of the story, but what I'm excited to dive into with you today is to get more into like the meat behind your strategic decisions and the strategy behind your growth, the strategy behind your leadership, the strategy behind the culture that you're building over there, and kind of get that one level deeper than just the numbers and the funding.
Cool. Let's do it.
Awesome. So let's just for folks that aren't as aware as I have been, let's do a quick background. So, high level, when was SalesLoft founded? Why was SalesLoft founded? And what does SalesLoft do?
Yeah, sure thing. Well, first of all, thank you. It's an honor to be here with you as well as all of our viewers. And I think, speaking to the audience, I know by nature of showing up for an event like this, that each of you being intentional about your career growth, that you're cut above. And so I'm excited to be here with all of you. My goal today is to share at least one major takeaway that you can start acting on now to win, whether that's in leading within a startup or running your own. So Holly, you asked about my background in SalesLoft. SalesLoft is a sales engagement platform, and we're the #1 sales engagement platform on the marketplace. So today we serve over 3,000 customers, including great organizations like Google, LinkedIn, IBM. What we do is we empower them to allow their sellers to communicate with customers and prospects in an authentic, sincere way and do it at scale so that they maximize revenue and provide the customer with the best experience. And we've grown pretty rapidly. So we were 5 employees somewhat 6, 7 years ago, and we're now over 450 employees. And really having a blast just helping companies with their revenue operations and their workflow. And at the end of the day, our customers are able to have more quality interactions with their buyers. They're able to have more interactions with their buyers. They're able to drive more pipeline, improve their process, and close more business. And so that's what we're focused on, and excited to jump in today.
Looks like we dropped Holly there for a second. Apologies, everyone. Wi-Fi and technical difficulties. Holly, you froze for a minute. Can you restart your last question?
Yes, I was actually just marveling at the fact that you're at 450 employees now. That's absolutely nuts. So just for fun, just to kick us off, you talked about folks that are joining this kind of event being, able to envision themselves doing big things. Did you think 6 or 7 years ago when you had 5 employees, did you know you'd be here at this point?
That's an interesting question. I think the answer is yes and no. On one hand, I always believed in a world where sellers were loved by the buyers they serve, and that the pains that we had originally set out to solve were real and they were enduring. So from that perspective, and I think that's kind of a lesson for founders, is you want to be doing something that you want to be solving a pain that you know deeply or that you care about deeply, and that you're willing and committed to stay focused on for decades plus, right? So for me, helping sellers to do their jobs better, helping them be authentic, helping them deliver an incredible experience to their customers, helping them do it at scale and generate more revenue, that's something that's just near and dear to my heart. So I love being able to be focused on that, and I'm happy to do that for the rest of my life. Now, on the other hand, of course, this is a dream come true for me. So I really want to thank everyone who has helped us to get to where we are today. And I'm sure and hopeful that we've got some customers on here today with us, maybe some lofters and some folks that have been on the SalesLoft journey. We're grateful for our investors and, of course, the sales and startup communities. So, without these major players in our journey, we wouldn't be where we are today. So I think it's a little bit of both. I dreamed of it, and then I never really imagined it would happen this way.
Yeah, awesome. I love that. And I also see in the chat that Jay has said he's at 105 consultants today, up from 1 person, and he's hoping to hit 400 in a few years. So it's definitely, it's that dream that these kind of folks that are on the shop. Yeah, that's awesome. So I want to get into more of that strategy behind the growth and what you talked about. So just cherry picking a few things you mentioned. Sales engagement. This isn't this is a crowded category. There's a lot of folks in this category, but you've clearly emerged, as you said, as the category leader with the kind of clients you have, rated number one in the category. What was the strategy behind sort of differentiating yourself and emerging and putting yourself as the leader in this space?
Yeah. So when you talk about a crowded space, I think, there's a lot of companies out there trying to solve specific sales problems. But when you narrow it down to the things that we do and do well, there's not a lot of companies out there. I mean, there's a few of them, but if you look at a G2 Crowd as an example, which is one of the great resources that everyone should be focused on if you're building a software company, SalesLoft has been voted number one in the sales engagement category for 9 quarters in a row. And that's since the beginning of them following the category. So a lot of this is, we kind of created this category. It didn't exist before. You had CRMs, you had marketing automation, but you never had a system that sat on top of these databases to really help companies codify the way they go to market. And so we really have helped evangelize and create a category from scratch. We were real excited this year when Forrester, for the first time ever, started to follow the sales engagement category and created their first wave. And SalesLoft was in the top right corner, ranking in highest in most of the categories there. And so we're excited to be the leader of that wave. But I think, the big things are that, we just stay hyper focused on our customers' pain points, the things that they're trying to solve, the pains that they're running into. Those are the things that we're most intimate with. I see Holly's dropped off, but I might as well just answer it to the audience here. For us, it's all about that intimacy with the customer problem. And I believe that the one who cares the most about the pains your customers are dealing with, you're going to be the most successful. And then you've got to be aggressive. You got to invest when the market is ripe and ready. And, we've raised a lot of money to get through that process so that we can deploy capital in a way that will best serve our customers. But those are a few things. And then another thing we've done is we've really redefined the definition of this category. So, we originated it as one definition, and then that's evolved and changed over time. So now today, SalesLoft is really the only complete sales engagement platform in the marketplace because of the various products that we offer out there. Now, Allie, I don't know if you're here and you want to step in. Holly's back. Can you hear me? And are we good?
Back. No, I'm back. I'm sorry about that. I don't know what's going on. I could keep seeing you too.
Oh, cool.
But go ahead.
So just really, talking about how to, win in a category. And I mentioned it was mostly about staying really intimate with your customers' pain points and being innovative in the way you solve them. Another thing that's really important is having a really incredible organizational health in your company. When we've invested in organizational health and culture from day one, and I believe that's the biggest sustainable differentiating advantage that any company can have. And when you have folks aligned to the vision, the mission, the values, when they're clearly defined and you live and eat and breathe and sleep those, and then a lot of rigor and structure around goal setting, core strategies, cadence of meetings, communication to the team. Those are things that we've done that I think we've done better than other companies in the category, and they've helped us excel.
Awesome. So I want to pick out one of the things that you said at the beginning that I think is so critical is that category creation part. And I think that that's such a neat strategy and tactic for companies that are entering a new space. How do you create this new market, and how do you teach and educate customers? Category and really setting yourself apart. That I think that's a great nugget.
Yeah, there's a few things that we learned along the way. Now, not everyone's going to create their own category. I mean, one of the most successful businesses in the world right now is Zoom. They didn't create a new category. They just replicated what was already there and did it 10x better, right? So you can do that. If you see a space that, imagine right now you're out there and you're looking for a business idea, look at all the critical business systems and find the ones that have really low NPS, right? Find the ones where their customers hate it. And, if you think back to, video conferencing prior to Zoom, a lot of people hated their systems. I don't know, what you were using or what it was, but a lot of people would say it just doesn't work. And with Zoom, the claim to fame was it just works, right? And so you have an opportunity to identify a market in that something that's already existing and large, but not being received well by customers. That's one path. Now, the path we took was to invent something that didn't exist before. Now, processes and best practices, and there were people out there executing awesome cadences of, as sellers, but they were doing it manually. They were doing it in disparate systems. There wasn't consistency. But if you have a category like that where you think you want to create something new, there's probably folks out there that are already experts at doing it in the manual way. Go find out how they're doing it and map out that process and then say, how can we accelerate this and make it 10 times easier? Right. And so that's what we did with sales engagement. We just started watching the best sellers in the world, seeing what they were doing and asking a ton of questions like, well, why do you do this way? Well, isn't that painful? What if it could do this? What if it could do that? And then you can talk to experts out in the category. So usually there's bloggers, writers, authors, consultants, trainers, people that get up on stage and talk about these topics and subjects. And we really aligned well with them to say, hey, you've got a big audience. You've got a great message. We're going to accelerate that message, and we're going to empower you to help your customers and your constituents do what they're doing today easier by having access to something like SalesLoft. And so those are some of the strategies we use to really, kick it off. And I highly recommend going out and finding the industry leaders in your category, the voices that people listen to that have audiences. And don't start by asking them to, promote you or use your product. Start by promoting them. Take their message to your audience. Help make the things that they're saying learned and understood by more and more people. And that will really drive value in a relationship that can last the test of time.
Awesome. I love that. Something else I want to dig into is your innovation strategy. So even a company like SalesLoft, which is young and obviously very innovative, you kind of have to balance sort of that organic growth versus inorganic growth. And specifically SalesLoft, you've actually made 2 acquisitions. So you acquired a company in 2018 and in 2019, I believe. What's your thinking behind, we want this new feature, we want this new product. Are we going to build it in-house? Are we going to go acquire the technology? How do you sort of think about that?
Yeah, sure. Well, I think you can't just do one. And maybe you can just do organic if there's not acquisitions out there in the marketplace, but I don't think you can rely on acquisition only strategy to get to where you need to go. And we certainly haven't done that. I think in the life of this business, we've probably created 15 different products that have gone live for various folks within the revenue cycle. Now we have, 4 or 5 of them that you can use today. And we're really blending those all into one platform that is the ultimate place to go to get your job done for the personas we serve. But acquisitions have been fantastic for us. And the way they've all started with identifying our core strategies as a business. So for example, if you go back 2.5 years ago, we had a core strategy called Embrace the AE. And the AE is the account executive. They're the traditional closer. 2.5 years ago, our software was more aligned to that top of the funnel, inside seller, SDR, BDR, person who's creating opportunities, right? From inbound or outbound leads. And we said, this is not the business. We're not just going to be in this business. We're going to serve all types of sellers. And so we created that core strategy that was Embrace the AE, and we started building internal products to meet those needs. And along the way, we found a product that fit in really, really, really nicely with that strategy. Oh, by the way, they had already built an integration to SalesLoft. Oh, by the way, they had already sponsored our conferences and come out. We could identify our co-customers that were using both. We could survey them and see what the success rates were. And then we could talk to those founders and say, what's your vision for this business? And would you be able to entertain that vision under the SalesLoft umbrella? And we came together, and that's just been, that's allowed us to do things that nobody else in the category can do. So we've got, if a company wants to buy, this sales cadence type solution, which is a very popular sales communications engine, if they want to buy this conversation intelligence solution that exists out in the marketplace, and if they want to buy this pipeline or deal management product that exists out in the marketplace, they can go to 3 different software providers and buy all 3 of those softwares. They can go through the legal, security, data, privacy approvals. They can do the integrations with calendar, phone, email, CRM. They can do the configurations, implementations, training with 3 different providers, or they can come to SalesLoft and get it all from one partner. And we can combine the experiences all into one workflow so that you get a more seamless interaction than you ever would with 3 different disparate systems. And so I think that's the reason we've done it. And it's been fantastic for our customers to be able to have one shop to stop, I guess, and that's just really been helpful for them.
Okay, so it sounds like it's kind of all about alignment of goals and adding to the ways that you can serve the customer, that acquisition strategy. Is that right?
Say that one more time. I was reading the chat.
It sounds like it's all your acquisition strategy. What I hear you saying is that it's kind of all about this alignment goals and also adding to the feedback and the way that you can serve your customer across the board. Yeah,
that's right. You want to have a core charter for your business, and that core charter is identified, and maybe we'll take it slow. So if you're taking notes or someone wants to put it in chat, but what you need to have first is a vision for your business. And the vision is really one stop short of solving the world's problems, right? For us, it's that we see a world where sellers are loved by the buyers they serve. The next thing is you have to have a mission. This is like what you're actually doing, right? And what are we actually doing? We're empowering our customers to enable their sellers to deliver their customer with an incredible sales experience, doing it at scale in a way that allows them to provide the customer with the best interaction, but also maximize revenue, right? So we identify that, and then we go into what are the values of the company. I won't list them all here unless they come up in a question, but we identify our values and we inject them into the whole company. And then we get into what are the core strategies of the company. We have 5 core strategies. They change every 6 to 12 months. In a coronavirus year, they may change in 6 months. In a regular year, they may change in 12 months, right? And 2 of those core values never change. And then the 3 are what we call growth strategies. So the first 2 are we want to be the best place to work, and we want to be the best place to be a customer, period. So that means we love on our customers, we love on our lofters. And then the 3 growth strategies for us at this time are 1, move up into the enterprise, 2, go full cycle across all different types of sellers, and 3, win with alliances. So if there's an acquisition, it's going to have to fit in with one of those core strategies, or it's not something that we care to do, because we can only you can do anything, but you can't do everything.
Yeah, I hear you. And to everyone in the chat, I think we'll take some extra time at the end and answer questions, because it looks like you're getting some really good ones, Kyle. But I just want to continue on this theme of digging into the growth strategy. So one thing that was really exciting I think last year, was that there was a big announcement that SalesLoft was expanding with a London office and into the Europe and Asian market. What was the decision? I'm assuming you haven't completely penetrated the US market yet, but although you've got some amazing clients, but what was kind of the decision? Let's go global. Let's really put resources into getting these international clients. What was the thought behind that?
Yeah. So, I mean, to put it in perspective, we booked 8 figures in Q3 this year, and 12% of those bookings came from our EMEA office. So it's a substantial revenue generator for us. And that was actually the target. We said, if this is a segment where we can generate over 10% of our bookings, then that's something we want to invest in. But we already had customers in London, in Europe, across all of Europe, and we were serving them from the States, right? And so, just by nature of these companies coming in and buying our product, we wanted to make sure that they had the best experience possible. So we evaluated, we did there's a lot of really cool things you can do with investors and, different chambers of commerce internationally that have programs that help you identify, is it the right time for you to expand internationally or not? But SalesLoft, the game plan is to be a multi-billion-dollar revenue business. And the only way we're going to do that is by being the global leader of this technology. So we wanted to get out there early. And it was really cool when Forrester put us in their wave this year. They ranked us the highest in market presence of any company in the category. And one of the big reasons is that we had established presence in London and Europe before anyone else, and that it was growing so rapidly. That team has never missed quota yet. In fact, if you roll up all the goals and the achievements, they're well ahead of every other department in the company, which encourages us to invest more there. But we're still, as you said, selling into the States, and it's the most important market to us from a size perspective. But we want to be a global business, and that means reaching out to the world.
Yeah, interesting. So switching gears a little bit, I want to talk about the relationship aspect of your growth, because just like in sales, everything is kind of built on this building block, this platform of relationships, right? And you've obviously built some really powerful, strong relationships. I remember your Series D investors, they were the same folks that led your Series C round. I think that's right. And so they obviously believe in you. You obviously have a great relationship. You've obviously formed really powerful relationships with your customers. What's your strategy behind maintaining those good relationships, deciding who to work with as partners, everything around that?
Yeah, sure thing. And I think I can also answer Rose's question while we do this, because it does tie into the investor relationships. So I'll give you the quick rundown on how it all went down. I wanted to start a business in Atlanta. I wanted to start a company since I was a kid, basically. And I've had a couple of journeys that didn't work out. But I got to know pretty much every entrepreneur and investor in the city. And David Cummings was the most impressive to me. And he was the most impressive because of the way he led his team and how he injected his own values on how you should treat others and how you should behave in this world to be part of the business. So that was attractive to me. So I said, okay, I want to work with that guy. So I followed David and built a relationship with him. I, read every blog post, commented on his blog, saw him at events, asked him questions, took him out to lunch and just said, hey, I want to start a business and I want you involved. And so David said yes, and we were off to the races. Now, Rose, that's the beginning of our board. So David was the first board member for us, and he was the one who helped me get the business off the ground. And if it wasn't for his capital and insight, SalesLoft would have never existed. So as we scaled, there was a gentleman in Atlanta that probably has the most success as an exited entrepreneur. His name's Tom Noonan. And I always looked up to Tom as I spent time in the Atlanta Tech Village, and I saw the success he had, and I would go see him speak. And every time he spoke, I would take tons of value away from these conversations. So I wanted to work with Tom. And I started tracking him down. I knew he had seen billion-dollar companies, and then that's what we wanted to become. And so ultimately, I sat down with Tom and I showed him the vision of what we wanted to do, and he decided to invest in SalesLoft. Then Tom joined the board, right? And so now we were off and running, and we had these two products, and one was, old, and we were going to sunset it eventually, and the other one was the future of what we are now today. And we started to look for investors in Atlanta, and it really didn't seem like anyone was going to give us the value of what we were worth in the marketplace. So we said, let's go out to the West Coast. And I had established a relationship with a gentleman named Jason Lemkin. Some of you might know him. He runs the SaaStr conference and is very popular online with his blog and content. And Jason was the most well-known person in SaaS. So I said, I want to be connected to Jason, because if Jason's an investor or an advocate for SalesLoft, then we're going to get more distribution, have more customers, and I'm going to learn more. So I had invited him to do some webinars, things like this with me. And so we built a relationship. And then he introduced me to Emergence Capital. Emergence Capital ended up running our first, professional round of financing. It was a Series A. And then Jason from Emergence joined the board. So here I was. I had raised money from 3 different individuals, and each of them joined the board as part of that financing arrangement. Fast forward to a few years later, we had a scaling business, and a gentleman named Jeff Horing at Insight Partners. He's the founder of the fund, and they're one of the greatest funds in the world with 28 billion under management, and they see companies to IPO. So they had more IPOs than any other SaaS companies, and I knew that's one of the things that we wanted to do. So we got to interact with them, and they wrote a term sheet, and Jeff joined the board. So answer your question, Rose. All of my board members are the people who gave me money, and the people who gave me money are the ones that I had sought out by being the most well-known in the category. Now, I wish that I had a more diverse board. That's something that's really important to us. And so what we've done now is we've identified that we can let in 2 additional board members to be independent board members. And we haven't begun the search in that regard, but there's no chance that I won't hire for minorities, to be part of that, because I want to round out the experience. I want to round out the input, the advice I'm getting. I want to be able to look into all backgrounds and ways of life, because our customers are diverse. Right. And so I want our board to more reflect our customer base versus what it reflects today is the people who would give me money to help me grow the business.
So I want to hold on a couple of things you said there. And I know you mentioned the IPO, and for everyone watching, we will get back to that. But I actually want to also touch on Kevin's question in the chat, Kevin White, because something you talked about, we're talking about relationships. And SalesLoft is, you've been rated like #1 workplace in Atlanta. You've gotten tons of accolades for things like this. You have an extremely diverse workforce, and you're pretty dedicated to that. I know I saw like the giant SalesLoft product float last year and things like that. But to Kevin's question, I know you had to make some hard decisions this year during COVID.
Yeah.
And I know that you had to. Yeah, agreed. It's 2020 could end yesterday. But I know that you had to talk to employees about that. And I know that you had to reassure some and tell some that it was going to be hard. And how did that go for you? How did you go about doing that?
Yeah. So, let's kind of, tee up this scenario. We're building a business that's on a mission. And we're on a mission to help sellers deliver an incredible experience to their customers. That is the guiding principle of this entire company. And we want to make sure that that's a reality. And at the same time, we want to help lofters, our employees, to learn more, do more, become more, to be part of something special, and to learn how to serve others and find fulfillment in their lives. And so, as COVID hit, and I started looking at the fact that we're in a 10, 11-year bull market run where the economy hasn't taken any downturn at all. And I specifically remember the last downturn with the RIP good times, where my industry crumbled, my wife lost her job, and we had to start over from scratch, right? And so the last thing I wanted is for any industry turn down to kill the dream of SalesLoft, to put everyone on the street, if you will. And so we're a growth business, which means that we're dependent upon external venture capital or growth capital at this stage, financing to get to that goal of IPO. And we had one more round of financing in our future, meaning that we were dependent upon the markets to sustain the business. Now we had a long runway of cash, but I started saying, okay, what if we get to the point where we need to raise this round of capital and the capital's not there? This business could be destroyed or in jeopardy. So what I want to do is I want to look at the company and I want to say, okay, what decisions would I need to make now so that I could run cash flow positive and never depend on external financing ever again, so that the lofters who are part of this journey would get to remain on this journey and that the vision and the mission that we're on would get to stay fulfilled. So we started looking at the data and it said, okay, we need to stop hiring for a period of time. And, if you look at a company like GE, they do a 10% haircut every year on performance management. We've never done that ever in our lives. Well, let's look to our staff. We've grown from, a mentor told me, he said, you've grown from 5 employees to 500 in 6 years. If you don't think there's performance management that you need to do, you're either arrogant or naive. So I said, okay, well, let's make sure that the business is going to be around. Let's do a small haircut on the staff, make sure it's the only one we ever have to do. We can use it as a performance management opportunity, and we can use it as a way to, as we shift our strategies to this new digital world, we're going to want to invest in other areas that we weren't invested in before. So for example, we had a big market in the small business area. We still sell to small businesses, but it's not the main focus for our company as we've moved up into the enterprise. So we're able to shift resources off that small business function and then ultimately hire back. So we did that. And then Q2 came along. Q1 was a dog with all the uncertainty. And we closed our year in Jan 31. So we got the brunt of March and April in Q1. And we had to cancel our 1,700 person conference that we had shelled out $1 million for that was live in San Francisco, 8 days before the event went off. So Q1 was a dog. Q2 came back with a vengeance. What we realized is that with COVID, there's winners and losers. And being a digital communications technology, that's a winning strategy because all of our customers now, their sellers are at home. They need to empower them better. They need to track them. They need to be able to, improve the process. And that's what we do for them. So unexpectedly, Q2 was amazing. The market didn't tank. You've seen what the stock market's done. It never went down like we thought it would before. And then Q3 was back as well. So we've rehired, but what we've done is we've rehired in new strategic areas that are better fit for the new world that we live in. So we have a product called Conversation Intelligence that's attached to Zoom calls and integrated into video conferencing. That got more investment than it had before. We have, we've moved upstream into the enterprise, so we've invested more there. But yeah, honestly, I think I did it with the decision making of the market might tank, and then the market didn't tank.
Yeah, I think that transparency is really clear. It's clear in how you employees. It's also clear in how you talk to customers. So one thing I noticed at the beginning of the pandemic was you wrote a letter directly to customers. I think it was a blog talking about how you wanted to allay their fears, and you're there for them when you need them. What's that strategy behind talking directly to customers as the CEO? Is that an intentional strategy?
I don't know if I'd maybe call it a strategy as much as it's just a motivation. I know that the closer we are to customers, the more that we love on them, the more we're going to be able to help them and the more successful we'll be. So I think that's really the most important thing that I've thought about when I connect with, with our customers. And I like to have a relationship direct with them.
Got it. That makes a lot of sense. So, and I want to do a check. Can you still hear me?
Yeah, you come in and out a little bit.
Sorry, everyone, but you can hear me now, Kyle? I'm in?
Yeah.
I'm good? Awesome.
Yeah.
So let's hit the $1 million question, or the $1 billion question, the IPO question. So you mentioned it a little bit. Every startup founder, it's their dream, right? It's that big ringing the bell on the stock market. What's your thinking there? What's the eventual goal? Is it the IPO?
Yeah, IPO to me represents kind of making it to the big leagues, if you will. So, we're playing AAA ball right now, and I want to get called up to the show. And so it's a goal. It's not an expectation. So I want to be very clear there. You never know what the markets are going to throw at you. And, there's governments and macroeconomic climate shifts and competition. And there's all kinds of things that I have no control over. So I'm not going to stand up in front of my staff and say it's IPO or bust. But I tell you, I think that would be a fantastic, journey to go on. And I think it'd be a really great joy to be, a public company. But the biggest priority is that we're set up to fulfill our mission of serving our customers, and we're set up to help our lofters to be their best selves and to, have a great fulfillment. And so those are the most important things to me. And then, the kind of the ultimate outcome, I'm planning on building a long-term business that, stays the course and fundamentally changes the professions we serve forever. So that's really my main priority.
So let's take some of these additional questions from the chat. So Jay, who we talked about before, who's obviously killing it, asked, how do you duplicate your sales strategy and mentality to the workforce in the best way possible if you as the CEO can create a way for sales to take place easily? So I think the question is kind of around integrating that sales mentality into your into your lofters.
Yeah. I think it's really important that you kind of harmoniously balance that blend of being active and involved and empowering and delegating to your team. It's kind of the whole idea of like, my daughter, when we were squeezing fresh tangerines the other day and making juice. And the first time we do it, I'm gonna show her how to do it. I'm gonna cut the tangerine. I'm gonna put it in the juicer. I'm gonna strain it, and I'm gonna let her watch me do it. The second time, I'm gonna guide her. I'm gonna be there right there with her, holding her hand and helping her through it. And then the next time, I'm gonna go hands free, and I'm gonna watch, and I'm gonna encourage her, and I'm gonna praise her, and then I'm going to coach her and guide her a little bit, right? And so I think that's the way you want to do it. And I didn't always do it right and the best way. And one of the biggest learnings of my career has been getting more hands off and kind of backing away from the business. And I think at the beginning you have to be really hands on. And it's hard not to, but you definitely want to attract great talent. You want to inspire them to be able to execute on your sales strategy or on all your strategies, quite frankly. And then you want to empower, coach them, and you want to be able to measure success. And so I think. I don't know where you are, Jay, on your journey, but you want to show your people what can be done, but then you also want to empower them to do it so that you can back away. And I'll tell you, there was a quarter in the SalesLoft history where the end of the quarter is really a nice, fun and exciting time to close a lot of business. And our CRO, Steve, came to me and he said, I go, hey, how can I help? What can I do? Where can I go? Who can I talk to? And he's like, Kyle, if we need you at the last minute, then we did something wrong. And that was a real relieving feeling to know that, we've got a team that's able to execute on the things they need to do. So I think it's really important that you, kind of harmoniously balance that blend between being really involved and empowering your people.
Yeah, I like that. And another question I want to touch on is something that Rose asked, but I'm going to broaden it a little bit. She asked about sort of the ways to get through due diligence to close a deal. But what I want to broaden this to is something I think a lot of B2B founders struggle with. And you mentioned you switched from mostly SMB sales to a real focus on enterprise. And what I want to talk about is with enterprise, there's a lot of challenges getting into the door at corporations. How'd you stand up a sales team and a strategy around that enterprise focus?
I always used to say that we're not going to just transport ourselves to serving the enterprise, meaning that we're going to grow into being an enterprise provider. So we'll start by selling to the small, really, really, really small companies, and then we'll sell to a little bit bigger companies and a little bit bigger and a little bit bigger. And the next thing you know, we've got Microsoft buying our software, right? And so I think that was always a strategy for us. Is I think a lot of companies believe they can just morph into the enterprise or like, beam me up. And for us, I never really believed that would work. So we always just grew a little bit more. We track the ACV really, really tightly. And then we track the top 10 deals of each quarter really tightly. And every one of those graphs looks like this. So what you measure, you'll improve, right? And I think that's been really important. But, to serve the enterprise is a different game, especially with a system like ours that integrates with CRMs, calendars, email systems, phone and telephony dialers, and other data systems. You got to be able to do it right. You got to be security first. You got to have governance focus. You've got to have integrations and capabilities. And, we've deployed millions and millions of dollars to have the security that we have at SalesLoft so that our customers can trust us. And if it wasn't for that, these big companies wouldn't buy from us. It's really neat that, we'll go into these big opportunities and we'll hear, well, the other competitors were rejected because they didn't pass our security, and SalesLoft did. And that's just one barrier to entry, right? You got to get legal, you got to get procurement, you get the business line, you get the tech side, you got to cover it all. And I think that's what's really important.
Yeah, awesome. So one last selfish question I have is, you've seen the Atlanta tech scene really grow, from when SalesLoft was small and you were first starting off at Atlanta Tech Village to now when there's multiple startup hubs across the city. Where do you see, I believe that being in Atlanta is pretty important to you as a company. Where do you see the Atlanta scene going in the next few years? Where have you seen it going in the past few years? Are investors looking at the city more? Do you think there has been demonstrable growth?
Yeah, I think there has. And I've actually been in it way before then, because I was in the Advanced Technology Development Center in 2015. So, I'm sorry, 2005. So 15 years ago, I was in the ATDC. That was well before the Village was started. And I think one of the things I heard from Dr. Paul Judge, who is one of the most incredible advocates for the Atlanta startup community and one of the most admired entrepreneurs that I know, he said to me, he said, in Atlanta, people try to compete with each other when they should be playing the global Olympics. And that really hit home for me, is that I see a lot of, Atlanta startups comparing themselves to other Atlanta startups, trying to raise money from the same Atlanta investors. And my attitude was always, yeah, I'm from Atlanta and I'm proud of it, but we're a global business, right? Which means that we're not competing with the startup down Peachtree. We're competing with the startup in, Sweden, or the startup in the Bay Area or Boston or New York. And that's really more important to me, is that we have that perspective. And then, of course, yeah, we went to Bay Area for our Series A round. We raised our Series B round in Atlanta, and we raised our Series C and D rounds in New York. And so I'm not, wedded to raising money in Atlanta, even though, I have Atlanta just beats in my heart, especially for the technology epicenter. But I think we need to think more globally as a startup community, and we need to go as far as we can with the resources we have. And, we have a core value at SalesLoft called glass half full. And the idea behind glass half full is not that the world is all sunshine and roses and there's no problems and no challenges. What it is that we understand that there are going to be challenges. We don't put our head in the sand. We understand the pains, the problems, the challenges, but we don't dwell on those. We select the positive path forward. And I think, in the last couple of weeks, actually, I've heard so many people complain about, the pains of staying up late at night to watch the news, or, some people are excited about the candidate, but they've hated the process to get here. Right. And I think, there's a lot of complaining, and I don't think that that's necessary. I think people should stay focused on what's important to them, and the windshield versus the rearview mirror. And so, I think that's what Atlanta technology companies need to do, is they need to remain positive, certainly understand the problems, the challenges, the pains, the things that Atlanta is good at and bad at, but then pick the positive path forward and go full steam. And I think that's what will make us successful. So while Holly's out, awesome. I'm going to take some questions. Are you there? I don't see you, but I hear you, I guess.
She's there, Kyle.
I think I'm still here. Am I here?
I hear you loud and clear.
I'm here. Cool. All right. I was going to say, I want to quickly flip that question, actually. So let's pick the positive path forward. And you're talking to someone who's outside of Atlanta, who's never lived here. I think there are some people listening in that aren't as familiar with Atlanta. You're trying to convince them to move here, to lead a new division of SalesLoft. What's the awesome things about the Atlanta technology scene?
Oh, yeah. I mean, Atlanta is my favorite city in the entire world. And I've had an opportunity to be in a number of different places, but I always come back to Atlanta. And I think first and foremost is the people. We just have incredible folks in our community and in our city who care and show love to each other. And I think that's, love is an action verb, not just as a feeling. And I think that is the biggest and most, coolest thing about the city. I think we're vibrant. We're super diverse. That you can find people from all different walks of life and backgrounds and experiences. And I think that's so impactful and important. And, I had a personal milestone in my journey when I was able to go from kind of being in a bubble of how I grew up to being in a real eclectic mix of amazing people from different walks of life. And it made me who I am today. And so I think that's a really, really important element of it. And then Atlanta is, able to get anywhere, right? If you live near Hartsfield, you can fly anywhere and you almost have direct flights to every city in the world that matters. And so I think that's really critical. Great talent, incredible education institutions, great big businesses, vibrant startup community, incredible seed investors and early stage investors, and hopefully some great success stories of multi-billion-dollar platform companies that potentially go IPO. Who knows?
Wonder who they'd be. Awesome. Well, I'm being told we have to wrap, Kyle. Hopefully I'm on video right now. Apologies for my Wi-Fi issues, but this was awesome. This was really great. I really enjoyed digging into this, and I'm sure the audience appreciates this as well.
Yeah, of course. It's an honor and pleasure to be here. I hope I get the opportunity to connect with more folks in the audience. You can send me an email, kyle@salesloft.com, if I can help with anything. And really appreciate you coming on and doing this, Holly.
Awesome. Thank you, Kyle. And thank you to everyone for having us.
Have a nice day. Bye, everyone.
Bye, y'all.